Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy. And today we're going to talk about UFC Denver. Rose Namajunas versus Tracy Cortez. And my friends, it's going down this Saturday night live at the Ball Arena in Denver, Colorado. 5.2K feet above sea level. Going to be quite an interesting card, you know. Not the biggest names, but that doesn't matter. The guys that are on this card, all for the most part, deliver the violence, and there's a lot to talk about. Some really solid matchmaking. So without further ado, my friends,
let's get down to business. Give you one more night to get this. We've had a million nights just like this. So let's get down to business.
Main event of the evening in the flyweight division. We got the former strawweight champion, Rose Namajunas. She's 12-6, taking on Tracy Cortez, who's 11-1. And currently, they got it. Rose Namajunas minus 205. The comeback on Tracy Cortez is plus 185. So I love this matchup for a couple of reasons. So what I think is intriguing is obviously that Rose is the proven UFC commodity. I mean, she's a two-time champion at strawweight. She's beat some of the best of all time, the Joannas, the Wei Lees, the Andrade fight, controversial or not, and the Wei Lee fight, controversial or not. But hey, on her resume, she's beat some of the best of the best. She is one of the best of the best. I would not be surprised if she landed in the Hall of Fame when it's all said and done. So, and she's from Colorado, so she's got a lot of things going up for a lot of things going on for her here. And with Cortez, you know, a lot of people saying this is a huge step up in competition. And while I'm not going to disagree, what I will say is she's paid her dues to get this step up in competition. This is not one of these fighters that is 1-0 in the UFC and now you're fighting Rose Namajunas in a main event. This is someone in Tracy Cortez who is on a damn big win streak. I mean, in the UFC, it's a 5-fight win streak, but overall, it's an 11-fight win streak. And we're talking about wins over Aaron Blanchfield. We're talking about wins over Melissa Gatto, Jasmine Jasudavicius. So when you put on that win streak, you've been fighting all the people that are kind of towards the top of the top 15 or kind of outside the rankings. You did what you had to do. You got the 5-fight win streak in the UFC, the 11-fight win streak overall. And now it's time to see how you do against a former world champion. So here are the things going into this fight. So it is short notice for Tracy Cortez and whatnot, and it's an elevation and all that. Yeah, okay. But like, she was getting ready to fight next week against Miranda Maverick. So it's not like this girl's coming off the couch. It's not like you're going to see love handles. I expect her to make weight. And I expect her to come in here with a point to prove. Because one thing about Tracy is that she does have a legitimate wrestling background. Because you've seen a lot of girls take down, you know, Rose throughout the years, whether it's her last fight against Amanda Hibosh, who took her down 4 times, but Amanda more of like a judo / jiu-jitsu player, whereas Tracy, like, straight up is one of the only women in the division who actually legitimately has a wrestling background. I mean, that's probably why she was able to get past Aaron Blanchfield. A lot of people thought that was a controversial decision, but regardless, the fact that, you know, firstly, we're talking about a plus 185 dog here. So give me a controversial decision if I'm taking the dog all day. I don't care. But there's a certain physicality and a certain respect that's involved when you get someone with a wrestling background in women's MMA, that they can dictate the pace of where this fight's gonna go. And the thing about Rose, so Rose is unbelievably talented. Her hands are super fast. I mean, she's athletic. She's been there, 2-time champ. Like what else is there to say? But I've always kind of had certain criticisms about the mental of Rose Namajunas. I think that when she's controlling the pace, when she's controlling the range, when things are going her way, she looks like $1,000,000. But when people actually stand up to her and give her adversity, that's what historically has given her fits. And to even pivot away from that point, what about people with a wrestling threat? That's what's given her threats. That's what's given her issues throughout her whole career. let's not just talk about that last Carla Esparza fight, which was one of the worst UFC fights of all time, where the threat of the takedown had Rose so gun shy that she didn't let her hands go against someone that doesn't have any striking, you know? And this was, and a lot of y'all don't know, but that was the second time that Rose has fought Carla. The first time they fought, Carla took her down and choked her out. Many years later, they stare at each other. Rose is completely shell-shocked by the threat of the takedown, doesn't let her hands go, and loses a decision. Now, she has bounced back since then, but I feel like even though Rose Namajunas is only 32 years old, I don't think she's a young 32. I mean, this is a girl who's been fighting pro since 2013, has been fighting overall since 2010. So, I mean, we're talking about a 14-year career. Like, at some point, it's got to wind down, and I have been seeing those signs that she is slowing down a little bit. So, let's date all the way back to when she fought Andrade the first time and she got slammed on her head, and she actually retired that night. Now, she comes back a year later and rematches Andrade, and on the scorecard, she won the first 2 rounds. But by the time that third round came through and Jessica started to add up those calf kicks, Jessica broke her in that third round, and I thought she arguably won that fight. Then we go to the Wei Li fight, the first one. Hey, beautiful head kick. You caught her in 1:18, which is, look, if you're going to catch someone and you catch them quick, all respect, great head kick. But then they rematched, and a lot of people thought that Wei Li probably should have got that decision. And that's coming from me, who bet on Rose in that fight. Because one thing about Rose, besides the Carla fights, she's got a good history in rematches. Like, beat Joanna in the rematch. I actually bet on Rose in that spot. Beat Wei Li in the rematch. I bet her in that spot too, and thought that maybe got a little lucky there. Then was that horrendous fight with Carla Esparza where you lose your belt. Like, how many times are you going to climb up the mountain again? And the Manon Fiorot fight, hey, Manon is, you know, a badass, probably about to fight for a title, so no shame there. But I just didn't see that urgency. I just didn't, not that I've ever seen that urgency. It's more like when Rose has such a clear speed advantage and athleticism advantage over certain people, she can get away with things. But when people really stand up to her, she struggles. And that Amanda Hibash fight, I mentioned Amanda took her down 4 times. When that fight was over, like, even though Rose won that fight, I felt like Amanda Hibash didn't lose anything there. Like, I felt like Amanda Hibash gave max effort, and her stock was the one that went up, whereas Rose, it was kind of just the same. And I think that with Tracy Cortez, so here's the thing. Again, we're not dealing with someone that's 1-0 in the UFC, getting this massive step up. We're dealing with someone that has that 5-fight win streak, 11-fight win streak overall, and has paid the dues necessary to get this opportunity against a former champion in a main event. Like, what else do you want from Tracy? Like, don't you guys think it's pretty adequate? You get a 5-fight win streak in the UFC, 11-fight win streak overall. Isn't that what you do to earn a spot against Rose Namajunas in the main event? So, yeah, short notice, this and that, but this is actually Tracy Cortez's weight class. She's a big flyweight, whereas we're dealing with a former strawweight in Rose. And Tracy, she's had some sketchy moments along the way, but she's fought some tough girls. I mean, listen, Melissa Gatto, she might not be ranked where Rose is. She might not have the name, but Melissa Gatto is a tough out. Jasmine, a little bit on the sloppier side, but Jasmine is a tough out. Erin Blanchfield, same story. Those girls are tough out. So I feel like Tracy's battle tested enough to where she possibly is ready for this opportunity. And if the threat of the takedown can make Rose Namajunas gun shy here, then I wouldn't be surprised if Tracy has some striking success too. Now, can you count out the possibility of Rose, you know, for women's MMA, Rose carries a lot of power with her hands and with her kicks. She's opportunistic when she takes the back, but like, when's the last time she did anything like that, man? Like, let's keep it a buck. When's the last time she took anyone's back and choked them out? Michelle, the karate hottie back in 2017. Michelle Watterson's a retired fighter. Like, I think that Tracy Cortez is catching Rose Namajunas at the perfect time. Perfect time in terms of Rose's career, maybe not perfect time with the short notice, but again, She was scheduled to fight Miranda Maverick next week. So it's not like this girl is literally coming off the couch. She's just fighting a week early. So I think this is a dog or pass situation. Rose Namajunas, like when people talk about how can Rose lose this fight, it's like, have you been watching Rose as long as I've been watching Rose? Do you remember when I cashed that plus 215 on Karolina Kovacevic? Like, do you remember when a bunch of my buddies cashed on Carla in that rematch? Like, guys, Rose Namajunas might be better than a lot of people, but Rose Namajunas is a hot and cold fighter, is a head case, has a fucking groomer coach. Like, I know now we're talking in emotional terms and we shouldn't do that, but I just can't get behind it. Whereas Tracy, she has been paying her dues, and I think that she might be ready for this opportunity. So yeah, I can't confidently say that Tracy's going to win this fight, but what I can say is, am I more willing to put, to take a plus 185 underdog shot on Tracy, or am I more willing to lay minus 220 on a head case, hot and cold flake? It's dog or pass for me. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick Tracy Cortez to upset Rose Namajunas and surprise a lot of people. Co-main event of the evening in the welterweight division. We got a matchup between Santiago Boa Ponzinibbio, he's 29-7, taking on the king of kung fu, Muslim Salikhov, who's 19-5. Currently, they got it. Santiago Ponzinibbio minus 190. The comeback on Muslim Salikhov just depends where you look, everywhere from plus 165 to plus 175. And I'm a huge fan of both these guys. Big time fan of both these guys. A lot of y'all noobs don't remember the guy that Ponzinibbio was. When Ponzinibbio was on his run, like, dude, I legitimately thought he was going to be the guy that was going to dethrone Tyron Woodley. I thought without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, we're talking about Ponzinibbio, who had like a 7-fight win streak in the UFC, beat guys like Sean Strickland on that streak. And like, the issue was, man, and also let me say this, back when Pons was Pons, dude, he was only like plus 160 against Usman. I think it was supposed to be in Chile or Argentina. I don't remember. The fight fell through. But dude, when Pons, before his health scares, he was a guy that was on his way to a title fight. And like I said, I think for sure he would have dethroned Tyron Woodley. And Pons at his best, he kind of takes a little bit to kind of, he has a lot of circling, a lot of footwork, some fancy in and out, starts to establish the jab, the calf kicks, and eventually he looks to set up that straight, that straight through right hand, kind of like that Calvin Kattar right hand that he landed on Feely. Like, man, when Pons is on his game, he's amazing. But he had that health scare where he had this bacterial infection where it was so bad that not only did he think he was going to die, not only did he think he could never fight again, but then he started saying stuff like, well, maybe I can drop to 55s. That was a massive red flag. This guy's not a small welterweight. That means that he lost so much body mass that this infection really fucked him up. And ever since he came back, he has not, it's a far cry from the Ponzinibbio that I thought could have been a future champion. It's just not the same guy. He still tries to fight the same. He still has the heart of a lion. Ponzinibbio is a true Argentine warrior. This guy is kill or be killed to the bitter end, but the speed isn't there like it used to be. Not that he was ever the most durable, but he used to eat a lot of shots early on in fights and come back to win those fights. And now he's not eating the shots as well as he used to. And it just sucks because this is a guy I had such high hopes for, but life is so unpredictable. And when you get that bacterial infection that you can't recover from, as a result, the performances you're going to put on in the UFC are going to mirror that, are going to match that. So it just sucks to see because, I really, thought the world of Ponzinibbio, and I still do as a man, but I'm just saying, like, you all got to go back and watch his early run. Watch that Neil Magny fight. Watch what he did to Magny. I get it. Beating Magny is not that big of a deal. Hey, there's a lot of prospects that don't get past the Magny test. There's a lot of legends that don't get past the Magny test. And it's like, Pons played that so perfectly. It was so vicious, like literally chopped him down with calf kicks and then just face planted him. It was beautiful. But after that, he had the medical issue and was never the same ever again. Now, with Muslim Salikhov, he is super explosive. Obviously, the king of Kung Fu, the king of spin. His spins are nasty. His counter punches are disgusting. And he's another guy where, how can you not be a fan of him? He's delivered us so many brutal knockouts. more of a counter striker than Ponzinibbio. But again, here in elevation, my boys, how old is Muslim now? Is he 40 yet? Let's see. So Muslim Salikhov. Yeah, he is 40. And how old's Pons? He's got to be like 38 or some shit. Let's see. 37. Okay, so 37 and 40. I just can't get behind the minus 190 on Pons. I believe that had this been a few years ago, prior to his medical condition, okay, yeah, I get it. Pons should be favored against a lot of people in the welterweight division pre, bacterial infection, but post bacterial infection, like, dude, did y'all see that life and death with Miguel Baeza fight? Like, and then some of these knockout losses he's been taking, the way he looked against the Leech, like, it's one thing to get caught in a fight, but just it's just a far cry from the guy we knew and loved. And I just can't get behind minus 190 here. And I understand Salikhov also coming off a brutal knockout loss, but Randy Brown is coming into his prime. Not to mention, Randy Brown is not at the tail end of his career. Randy Brown's about to hit the rankings, whereas Pons and Salikhov are about to retire. So I think this is a dog or pass situation, to be frank with you. I mean, either guy could get caught, of course. And if we're just looking at them based off their primes, right? Pons does have more output. Like I said, Pons, he starts to kind of feel you out a little bit with his footwork, starts to pop that jab, get the calf kicks going, eventually find the opening for that straight right. And then Salikhov kind of lays back a little bit and waits to counter. So in their primes, I got Ponzinibbio, but here post prime, I don't think it should be minus 200 Santiago. I think it should be closer than that. And I think it's a dog or pass. Obviously, it's hard to trust a 40-year-old, but I'm going to go Salikhov here to upset Ponzinibbio at these odds. Featured bout in the lightweight division. We got a matchup between Drew Dober, he's 27-13, taking on Gian Silva, who's 13-2. Currently, they got it. Oh, wow. A dead pick 'em. Drew Dober minus 110 and Gian Silva minus 110. So it's literally the exact same odds as the Jordan fight a week or two ago. And here's my thing. So I'm super high on Gian Silva. Like, I love everything about him. The guy walks out, he's barking like a dog, he hits like a truck, he goes for it, he's a violence fighter. That's what you like to see. But the thing was, when he came to the UFC, he fights like a Weston Wilson. His regional guys weren't that good. So I was thinking, oh, Jordan, a 13 fight UFC vet, 14 fight at this point. Like, I just thought that, there'd be a vet lesson or, kind of show him the ropes a little bit. And there was none of that. Like, Gian Silva showed that he was ready to swim right then and there. And Jordan's never been knocked out before either. Like, no one's ever handled Jordan like that. Ever. That was a statement. But now, I do have to say this, and that's not to discredit Jean's performance. Gian looked great. It's more so to say that, Jordan is a smaller 45er, right? Some people say he could even fight at 35s, whereas for Dober to make 45, you're gonna have to cut off his leg, man, and that might not even be enough. Like, Dober's a guy that started his UFC career at 170. I don't know if y'all watched that Sean Spencer fight back in the day, and Dober's a badass. Little funny story. He fought this dude named Nick Hine, Sergeant Nick Hine, in Germany. The guy was like a badass army dude in Germany back in the day. And so Dober fights him in Germany, and Dober loses the fight, but Dober goes to the after party, and he happens to meet Nick Hine's wife at the after party. He ends up marrying Nick Hine's wife. They're not married anymore, but I was like, yeah, my boy Dober got that dog in him for sure. Hey, if I'm going to lose to the guy, at least I get to marry your sister after, right? So, hey, props to Dober, man. But in all seriousness, Dober is a real 55er, whereas Jordan, well, I love his UFC experience, and I picked him because I thought that experience would carry him through. He is a smaller 45. Dober, like I said, that's a big 55. He might not be tall, but I mean, you seen those legs? You think my boy Drew Dober skipping leg day? I can assure you he's not. So this is another one where people are talking about Dober's declining durability. Yeah, I was shocked that out of all people to knock him out, it was Matt Frivola, who does hit hard. Don't get me wrong, but Matt's a guy that gets dropped in a lot of fights too. I thought, oh, for sure, Dober's going to knock this guy out. Nope. So MMA is very unpredictable. You saw the McKinney fight. He got dropped a couple times there too, but I still think he's got durability, man, and I'm super intrigued by this fight. Like, obviously, I do think they're gonna stand and bang until one man falls. And am I gonna go with the guy who's got the most knockouts? Well, is it second most? Did Dustin Poirier pass Drew Dober when he beat Benoit Saint-Denis, or are they tied? Either way, the UFC lightweight KO King or KO Prince, whatever you want to call Drew Dober. Um, yeah, so it's him versus Jian, who I think is a dog, who I think is a bright future, who's a great prospect, who had an incredible UFC debut and an incredible sophomore appearance. But I'm also curious about the quick turnaround. Like, I know he missed weight for the 45-pound fight, so maybe 55 is, the right move here, but it's on a week notice, up in elevation, up in that Denver altitude. Not saying John's gonna gas, but just saying Dober lives in Colorado. So I lean towards Dober, man. I lean towards Dober for the same reasons I lean towards Jordan, the experience. But here it's different because this guy's a real 55er. This guy has insane punching power. Like I said, you either have to call Drew Dober the UFC lightweight KO King or the UFC lightweight KO Prince, depending on where him and Dustin Poirier are with all-time knockouts in the lightweight division. But I'm gonna go with Drew Dober here. And what sucks about this, well, there's nothing that sucks about this fight, but what sucks about me picking against John Silva 2 fights in a row is that, like, I was so high. I'm still high on the guy, but again, like I said at the beginning of the breakdown, I thought that, like, okay, go from Weston Wilson, and then we're gonna go fight, I don't know, some top 50 guy, some top 70 guy, work your way up, right? Like a Julian Erosa, something. I don't know, but yeah, they already put him in there with Jordan. I guess that's the kind of confidence they had in him. And also, I think part of it might have been due to the fact that when William Gomis pulled out of their fight in Brazil, they gave Jian that quick turnaround opportunity against Jordan. He passed it with flying colors, minus the weight miss. And now you get Drew Dober in Colorado. If he passes this test, if you can knock out Charles Jordan, be the first man to ever do it, by the way, and knock out Drew Dober back to back, hey dog, like, you might be headed straight towards the top. But again, like, I was waiting for Jean to kind of go on this 5-fight win streak with kind of, mid-tier guys, get your feet wet. And they're throwing him in there with the sharks right away, and he is swimming. So I love to see it. And I might be wrong here again, but I'm gonna go with Drew Dober to get this one done. Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got a matchup between Gabriel Bonfim. He's 15-1, taking on Ange Loosa, who's 10-3. And currently, they got it. Gabriel Bonfim minus 310. The comeback on Ange Loosa is plus 260. So I know that a lot of people are very disappointed in Gabriel Bonfim's last fight against Dalby. But what you got to understand about that is that Dalby has a knack for dragging guys into the depths of hell. And I say the depths of hell and drowning them. How about the depths of the ocean and drowning them? That sounds pretty. That sounds a little better. But yeah, it was interesting. But I can't say it was that surprising because, like, Dalby has a history of doing that. Like, I'm saying a history. If y'all go back and watch his fight with Darren Till back in the day, where Darren Till drops him in the first round, Darren Till's looking like, oh, he's about to do whatever he wants. And in that third round, Dalby 10-8'd him and got to a draw. Dalby beat Zaleski in Brazil. Dalby beat Warley Alves in Brazil. Dalby beat Bonfim in Brazil. Like, some people thought Dalby might have beat Renat Fakhretdinov not too long ago. So listen, and I also think that it was kind of maybe a rookie stunt by Gabriel. He's just a kid. He was born in 1997, and he's been running through everybody in the first round. It was time to get tested by a real vet, and he's had enough time to marinate the loss. It was back in November of last year, and now it's time to take what you've learned and apply it here. What Ange Loosa does have going for him is that he fights at a higher pace than Gabriel Bonfim. However, with that being said, we talk about how there might be some cardio concerns about Gabriel. Is that really the case, or did he just kind of empty the clip trying to finish Dalby? Because you got to take this in consideration. When you were getting the kind of finishes that Gabriel Bonfim was getting, I mean, his head must have been exploding. We're like, dude, guillotine every motherfucker on the roster, you know? And once he fought like a real vet that's been there, that's been in the UFC a long time, that's paid their dues, and that wasn't just going to go away easily. He had to learn that, like, hey man, like you have to be able to go 3 rounds hard. But on the topic of conditioning, cardio, whatever the case may be, it's not that Ange Loosa ain't in shape. But let me just bring this up. That fight he had with AJ Fletcher, where I actually bet on Ange Loosa, round 2, he gave me a near heart attack, man. Like, what about that third round against Reese McKee? What about that third round against Reese McKee, where Reese McKee more than doubled up Ange Loosa on strike? So let's not sit here. Don't look me in the eye with a straight face and tell me that Gabriel's the only one with cardio concerns here, because I don't believe that. But in terms of what kind of athletes they are, like Loosa, he looks the part. He's physical as hell. He's durable as hell. But I think that there's certain things missing in his game. He doesn't quite have that umph that we're missing. Whereas Gabriel 100% has that umph. And dude, some of those chokes he has, Gabriel, like, let's go back to the Contender Series against Trey Waters. Firstly, when he took down Trey Waters, do you guys know how tall Trey Waters is? Trey Waters is 6'5" with a 77-inch reach. And if you watch that fight, Gabriel Bonfim shoots a takedown on Trey Waters. Trey Waters locks him in a power guillotine, which if you're 6'5" with a 77-inch reach and you get locked in one of those long man guillotines, chances are you ain't escaping. Not only did Gabriel Bonfim escape, but he passed guard and then got the guy in a Von Flue choke. I was like, okay. That guillotine he had on Munir, that guillotine he had on Giles, like people say Ange Loosa ain't got no neck, but let me say this: Bonfim don't just got, just some average guillotine or Darce or whatever the case may be. This guy's front chokes, and I say this as a front choke guy, are legit as hell. So I think these two are going to battle it out. And I actually do think, despite what everyone's saying about Ange Loosa not having a neck, let's put that to the test. I think Gabriel Bonfim comes out here and submits this guy. So I'm going to go Gabriel Bonfim to win. Now, next up, in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Christian C-Rod Rodriguez. He's 11-1, taking on Julian Juicy J Erosa. It was 29-11. Currently, they got it. Christian Rodriguez minus 215. The comeback on Julian Erosa is plus 175. I love this fight because Julian Erosa is the guy you give to your up-and-coming prospects to see if they can pass the Julian Erosa test. Julian Erosa is such a seasoned vet, and he's known for going out there and handing prospects some very tough setbacks. I mean, like, look at some of the wins this man has. Finished Jamal Emmers, finished Sean Woodson, finished Nate Landwehr. Early stoppage, but still finished Nate Landwehr, finished Charles Jourdain, beat the shit out of Hakeem Dawodu, finished Ricardo Ramos. So it's like, y'all that have heard me talk about Julian Erosa over the years know the dynamic here. Tons of people drop Julian Erosa in that first round. The people that follow up and get him out of there win. The people that let him off the hook tend to lose. So and also one more thing regarding Julian Erosa. People keep saying he's been knocked out 7 times. Fake news. He's been knocked out 8 times because Artem Lobov knocked him out on The Ultimate Fighter, for y'all that know. So, and those 8 times is all we know about. What about all the times in the gym too? And what about the times in fights that he's won where he's been dropped as well? So this man has been, yeah, this guy's chin is a massive liability. The issue is when you don't get him out of there, he's a very skilled fighter. He's a very experienced fighter. I mean, we're talking about a guy in Erosa who has what, 40 pro fights that we know of. That we know of. Okay. So yeah, he's one of those old school guys that you got to give a lot of credit to. And then with Christian Rodriguez, man, the kid is a little tank, man. I mean, 5'6", they say 5'7". I'm gonna go with 5'6". He keeps handing these prospects their first ever L. Handed Raul Rosas his first L. Handed Cameron Simon his first L. Handed Isaac Dulgarian his first L. And now he's in a situation where he's up against a seasoned vet, and he was an underdog in all those fights where he handed those guys L's. Now he's a big favorite. The thing about it is, I say this often with a lot of fighters. If you're a UFC fighter with top 15 aspirations and you haven't figured out how to beat Julian Erosa yet, there's a big problem. So I'm thinking, although Christian isn't really known for being a one-hitter quitter kind of guy, Fernando Padilla ain't known for being a one-hitter quitter kind of guy either. And I'm just saying, like, I want to see Christian Rodriguez come out here and headhunt. Don't go tit for tat. Don't have a cute little technical pretty battle with this guy. Go out here and headhunt and try to take him out. And you do that, I think Christian Rodriguez is getting his first UFC knockout. So I'm going to go Christian Rodriguez here to get it done and continue the big win streak. Now, kicking off the main card, we got a middleweight matchup between Abdul Razak Alhassan. He's 12-6, taking on Cody Brundage, who's 10-6. Currently, they got it. Razak Alhassan -170. The comeback on Cody Brundage is +145. So this is another one where I see all kinds of like misconceptions. People saying, well, either Razak's going to KO him early, which obviously could happen because Razak's got like 12 knockout wins, and 11 of them are in the first round. And one of them is like a couple seconds into the second round. That's his only win that's gone past round one. But the whole thing about Cody Brundage wrestling him for 15 minutes, that's what people are saying. He's got to wrestle him for 15 minutes. When has Cody Brundage ever wrestled anybody for 15 minutes? Never. Okay. People have a misconception that Cody Brundage is like a lay and pray guy or something like that. That's not the case. He's a killer be killed guy. It's just that, like, when you look at these guys' histories when fights go to decision, right? Okay, Cody Brundage, lifetime when fights go to decision, he's 1-2. And the one win, y'all ready for this? The one win where he went to decision was against a 13-15 guy. And they rematched later and he finished him. But he went 5 rounds with a 13-15 guy who now is 14-23 and 41 years old. So, like, you went to decision with a guy with a losing record, and that's the only time you've won a decision in your life. Abdul has never won a decision in his life. But what I'm trying to say here is the whole thing about, wrestling him for 15 minutes. You trust Cody Brundage to wrestle for 15 minutes in Denver, Colorado altitude? Like, let me remind you what happened when Cody Brundage tried to wrestle William Knight. What happened when William Knight got back up from the takedowns? Oh man, now it's time to go home. What happened when Cody Brundage took down Mikhail Oleksiejczuk in that first round? Mikhail reversed the position and then what? Pounded him out in the first round. Look what I got here. I got my boy Leo in the house. Hold on, you're on the camera though, bro. Let's get you in the camera. Yeah, fucking love this guy, my boy Leo. But yeah, I don't see Brundage wrestling for 15 as a path. Can he mix in a takedown here and there? Sure. Would I be surprised if Razak took Brundage down? Absolutely not. Why is that? Okay, well, let's look at Cody Brundage's history. 3 takedowns given up to Bo Nickel, which, okay, Bo Nickel, all right, no big deal. Let's not even talk about that. Jacob Malkoun's a stud. Yeah, we can give a pass there. We can't give a pass for the acting job, but we can give a pass for getting taken down by Malkoun. The Cedric Dumas fight, Cody took him down twice, and Cody kept going for these guillotines. Then he'd get reversed. He'd be on his back, and y'all want to hear a stat? Guess how many significant strikes Cody Brundage landed against Cedric Dumas in a 15-minute fight? 3. 3 significant strikes landed in a 3-round fight. And that was against a super green, undeveloped opponent. So I'm just saying, man, the thing about Cody, people saying, he's a grinder, he's this or that. That's bullshit. He's not a fucking grinder. What Cody is a kill or be killed fighter. When he's won fights in the UFC, opportunistic guillotine against Dalcha in a fight he was getting his ass whooped. Opportunistic overhand right against Tresean Gore. Then you go to the Jacob Malkoun fight, Thank you, Aljo, for doing that to the sport, man. I hope that Cody got a Golden Globe for that one. But and then the Zach Reese fight, was that a grind? No. This dude had him in a locked-in triangle. Cody Brundage picked him up and slammed him. Like, so this whole Cody Brundage is a grinder talk is bullshit. I view Cody Brundage as a kill or be killed guy who, when he's the hammer, great. But when he's the bully, great. But when people stand up to Cody, Cody just isn't the toughest. That's just the bottom line. Like, he's just, I'm sure in the training room, he's the fucking man. But inside the UFC's octagon, if things, any little sign of adversity, and he will look for the door. Razak is infinitely tougher. The issue with Razak, my boy's getting up there in age. He's 38 years old now, but I do believe he's been training in Colorado. So hopefully, obviously the elevation has been addressed there. So I actually think the main way that Cody could win is finishing this fight. And same with Razak. I mean, and which do I think has a better likelihood of happening? I think Razak's going to come out here and starch this guy. But again, would it surprise me if Cody rocked Razak? No. Would it surprise me if Razak landed takedowns on Cody? No. But ultimately, I'm going to pick Razak to spook this guy with, once he starts throwing that African heat, bodies do tend to hit the floor. And I don't think Cody Brundage is going to be any exception, even if he's not actually knocked out. But if he's hurt, he'll cover up and let the ref intervene. You just go watch that William Knight fight. That's all I got to say, man. So I'm going Abdul Razak Alhassan to get this dub. Now, next up in the flyweight division, the main event of the prelims, we got a banger between Joshua Van, he's 10-1, taking on Charles Energy Johnson, who's 15-6. Currently, they got it. Josh Van -210. The comeback on Charles Johnson is +180. This is a very tough fight to call because, firstly, Josh Van gets a lot of respect at the betting window. Josh Van has been a big favorite in a lot of these fights, and I get it. This kid is a young stud. He's getting better every single fight. He kind of has a bit of that Piotr Yan approach where, like, kind of, takes the first round to make his reads and download his data and whatnot. And then eventually you start to slow down. And this dude, he'll put it on. He starts ripping to the body, starts going upstairs. He starts getting mean, but he's also young and he's still maturing. Like there were points in that fight. Was it the Bunes fight or one of these fights where, like, he's got the guy hurt and then he drops back for a leg lock? And I'm like, dude, like, you don't have to prove a point like that. Like, it was like that Garrett Armfield fight, even though Van ended up winning the fight, but like that Garrett Armfield fight against Brady Heastan, where it's like, for a fact, Brady Heastan's only way to win this fight is in grappling exchanges. You keep this fight standing. Every time you kept it standing, you almost knocked the dude out, but then you follow him to the ground. You want to prove a point that you can grapple with this guy when, like, the easiest path to victory is just to make him stand with you. So, like, yeah, you can't be like why not take the path of least resistance like Habib used to, like GSP used to? So that's something that Josh Van's gonna have to figure out, because he is just a kid. What is he, 22? Is he even 22? Let's look up how old this kid is. Yeah, 22. Oh shit, his birthday is the day after mine. So what's up, Libra gang? I respect it. Let me see what Charles Johnson's birthday is. Oh, okay. He was born in January, so no, he ain't no Libra. So both guys often have slow first rounds, and then they tend to pick up the pace as their opponent's gas. The thing is, both these guys have great tanks, and this is an elevation. I love the fact that Charles Johnson came to Colorado as early as he could. This is a short notice matchup, but like, I saw him running y'all know about the Red Rocks Amphitheater, and he was running the stairs there, and like, dude. I went to a concert at Red Rocks once, and I was gassed out just nodding my head to the beat. Imagine running up those flight of stairs, and dude looked like his resting heart rate was on point. So this is a really tough one, because I absolutely think Josh Van is going to be a future top 10 guy, has, a very bright future, and I just love his game. But the thing about it is, Charles has already paid those dudes. Charles has fought those tough guys. Charles has been in those battles. Charles is ready to make his run right now. So, and like, when I'm not sure and one's +180, I think it might be a dog or pass situation. Look, Charles Johnson fights sometimes tend to be split decisions, so it could go either way, of course. But if I think it's going to be that kind of fight, gotta lean a little bit towards the dog, and I will. And I've been impressed with Johnson lately to beat that 15-0 Kazakh. Hey man, after the ass whooping you took in round 1, hey dog, respect. The fight against Hadley, dude, he floored Hadley at one point in that fight. Like, I think now he's got a little bit of confidence. He feels like he belongs. And he is a vet. Like I said, this guy's a former LFA champion. Has been 5 rounds before. And then Van, just such a talented young kid that has a bright future. But these young prospects aren't exempt from roadblocks along the way. Charles has taken his roadblocks. I would not be surprised if it's time for Van to take his little stumbling block. He will be back. He might even win this fight. Well, that won't surprise me either. But I'm gonna go with Charles Johnson with the veteran experience here, via a very close, tight, split decision type fight. Now, next up in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between Jasmine Jasudavicius. She's 10-3, taking on Fatima Kline, who's 6-0, making her UFC debut. And currently, they got it dead pick'em. Jasmine -110, Fatima -110. So, okay, going into this, right? Because everybody was talking about, a lot of people that I know were like, "Hey, listen, Fatima is one of the best women's prospects outside the UFC. And she's going to come here and do all these things." And whenever I hear people talking like, "Oh, this guy's the next big prospect," or "this girl's the next," I'm just like, yeah, okay, let me see it for myself. Let me see what I think. Because how many times have you seen big time busted prospects that people were hyping up for whatever reason? And dude, when I watched the tape on Fatima Kline for myself, because I was skeptical. Like I said, when everyone's talking about how someone is that good, not just like, "Oh yeah, she should be on Contenders," they're like, "No, this is the best women's prospect outside the UFC." I'm like, okay, yeah, all right, bro. I pulled up the tape, dude. She is legit as hell. Like, this girl Fatima can fight everywhere. And just so y'all know, she's Aaron Blanchfield's girlfriend. So, like, not only is she getting in, high level grappling with Aaron, she's a high level grappler herself, but I think she's more well-rounded than her girl Aaron. Like, Fatima, that last fight she had, dude, that title fight, that last one, like, she's out there switching her stances. She's throwing teep kicks. She's got punches and bunches, high kicks, opportunistic takedowns. The entries are beautiful. Her ground game is solid as hell. Like, I was like, oh shit. So she really is a legitimate prospect. And then on a side note, this really doesn't matter, but I was just interested about the origin of the name Fatima, because I swore that like Fatima is like a Muslim name. Isn't that like a Muslim name? I swear it was, right? But like I looked up on her post and like she's like thanking Jesus and stuff. So she's a Christian girl named Fatima, but I'm uneducated on the origin of that name. I just thought it was an Arabic or Muslim name, however you want to describe it. But yeah, this girl's Christian. Anyways, that has nothing to do with this. I just wanted to bring that up because people were saying that this is, I don't know. So Fatima is the goods, but this is up a weight class. It is on short notice. I say up a weight class, even though she won a belt in that weight class in a different organization. But granted, yes, she did not fight anybody worth a damn in those organizations, and the opponents were completely outmatched and a lot smaller. But you either recognize skill or you don't. And I 100% recognize the skill that she was working with there. It looked like someone that's going to be a future top 10 UFC fighter, period, point blank. And then, and I want to say one more thing regarding that last fight, because a lot of people are criticizing Fatima for not finishing fights. Dude, you pull up that last fight she had. Was the girl's name Romero or something? I don't know. Dude, that chick she was fighting had an insane chin, because she ate a head kick. She was eating punches that like wobbled her, and she was staying in there. I was like, damn, this girl's got a chin on her. So I don't really blame Fatima for not finishing that fight. And plus, you don't have to finish fights to win. Like, winning a decision is perfectly acceptable. Let me remind you. Now let's talk about Jasmine. What I love about Jasmine is that she's relentless. She's physical. She goes out there, and even though her game plan isn't the prettiest, even though, she's kind of listen, if you're at the bar, I like if you asked me which female fighter I'd go to the bar with in terms of like who I'd want my back in a bar fight, like we're not talking about the guys, we're talking about the chicks. I think Jasmine's a pretty damn good choice because she's mean. She gets in that clinch. She gets down and dirty. She gets right down to the grind. Like I got a lot of respect for Jasmine. She came through for me against Gabriela Fernandez as well. Like I've always been a fan of Jasmine. Even that fight she had with Cortez, I thought was a good fight too. So, and Jasmine has been paying her dues in the UFC. There's something to be said about that. But actually, so when this fight first got announced and I hadn't really watched too much Fatima, I was like, Jasmine is an underdog. She was an underdog at the time. Now it's Pick'em, but I was like, Jasmine's an underdog. There's this unproven girl. And then I watched the tape. I realized this is Aaron Blanchfield's partner in crime. I'm not talking about what they do outside of this. I'm talking about like these two are training. Iron sharpens iron is what the fuck I'm saying. Fatima's better than Jasmine. Period, point blank. Like technique for technique, Fatima's better. But there might be a bit of a size advantage for Jasmine, a little bit of physicality, a little bit. I'm not going to say the mean streak because Fatima is mean too. It's just about sometimes you got to take into consideration a possible debut stunt. That's always in the cards. And yeah, like she could lose this fight and then go on to have a great performance down a weight class. Like you've like a great career down a weight class. Like you've seen tons of fighters, they drop that debut, but they fight tough and then they come back and do great things. But I'm not writing off the possibility of Fatima winning this fight. Like I was that impressed when I watched the tape. And that's after my skepticism. Because again, when people hype someone up, I'm like, yeah, okay, let me see for myself. And when I saw for myself, I liked everything about her. So I'm actually going to pick Fatima on short notice to come out here and beat Jasmine Jasudavicius in Colorado. Now, next up in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between Luana Santos. She's 7-1, taking on Mariya Agapova, who's 10-4. Currently, they got it. Holy shit. Luana Santos minus 415. The comeback on Mariya Agapova is plus 315. Here's what I'll say. This fight stays standing. This is no minus 400 spot. That's for sure. It's just that, like, it really could only take one takedown and the fight could be over shortly after. Like, Agapova, I don't know her personally, but I've heard some stories, some that I won't repeat on here. You know, it's like she's not exactly someone that I want to be backing. I don't know where her state of mind is, and that's about all I want to say regarding that. I just, and not to mention the mental, but also when fights hit the mat, she tends to, you know, she's not fighting the hands that well. She's giving up bad positions on the reg. It just seems like she's one of those girls, or even like, you know, one of those guys that I talk about that, like, when they go to the gym, they're there to spar, hit the bag, hit mitts, and oh, I ain't doing that jujitsu stuff. I ain't rolling around on the mat with sweaty men, like, you know, or sweaty women in her case. Like, some people just neglect that aspect of their game. But on the feet, she is very dangerous. Now, are we getting the same version of her, like the one that fought Hannah Cyphers, where it was like, oh shit? But when you're dealing with like a head case like Mariya and you get a 50K bonus, she went off the deep end. Like, again, I don't want to get into too many details, but like, what did you do with all that money to like, again, yeah, I've heard some story. It's just, I don't know how true they are, but what I've heard is this is not someone you want to put your money on. The issue is that Luana is like minus 400. And let me tell you something about Luana. Go watch that debut against Juliana Miller. That was ugly. I'm not Luana's not ugly, but I'm saying that fight was ugly. Like some of those right hands that, and Luana got a first round TKO, which like Juliana Miller might not have any business in the UFC, but Luana gets this first round TKO. And when she's throwing her right hand, it's like, it was like rabbit punches with like flamboyance. Like it was like, oh my God, this is ugly, man. I think on the feet, Agapova, if Agapova was like in shape and actually been training and not been, you know, doing the things I've heard she's been doing, I mean, Agapova on the feet has a big chance here, but this fight hits the mat one time. Not to mention this fight goes past the first round. Agapova in Denver elevation. Pobrecito, you know what I'm saying? Pobrecita, excuse me. So I think it's going to be a little sketchy on the feet for a bit, but again, one back take, one full mount, whatever the case may be, and the fight might be over shortly after. So I'm gonna go with Luana to get this done when it hits the mat. But I think it will be very sketchy for Luana on the feet, and I do think Agapova has a chance if somehow this fight stays standing. But I don't think it'll. I predict it doesn't stay standing, and Luana takes care of it on the mat. But no chance I'm interested in this price. Now, next up in the bantamweight division, we got a matchup between Montel Jackson. He's 13-2, taking on Damon Blackshear, who's 14-6-1. Currently, they got it Montel minus 150, Damon plus 130. This is a very tough fight to call because y'all that have heard me talk about Montel over the years, Montel got mad at me for some of the things I said. I mean, I guess the truth hurts, but I didn't say anything out of line as far as I'm concerned. I say that this guy's one of the most talented fighters I've ever seen in my life. Like, what physical attribute does Montel not have? What fighting skill does Montel not have? It's just, I don't know what's going on upstairs. Like, you look at that Brett Johns fight. I do consider that a stunt. You drop him in round one, you almost have him out of there. It's like, oh, dude, we just got to bank one of these next two rounds. Smooth sailing. And like, he like doesn't even like throw a punch the next two rounds, gets pinned up against the fence, like isn't making any effort to separate it like that was really bad. But at some point, is he going to put it together or is he just going to never live up to his potential? Because, like I said, when he first came to the UFC, y'all remember my former co-host Shaq? Shaq said this guy reminds him of John Jones meets Aljamain Sterling. That's what my former co-host Shaq was saying when Montel first came to the UFC. And I thought I still think Montel is the goods. It's just it's time to finally put it together. And with Blackshear, another guy that's been paying his dues, he's paid most of his dues outside the UFC, but coming into the UFC, he's had some great performances, man. The Yusuf Zalal fight, I think that was on short notice, and it was going great the first two rounds, gassed out bad that third round. The Farid Basharat fight, I mean, he had some great moments in that Farid fight, and that Farid fight actually left me walking out thinking about how impressed I was by Farid. The Luan Lacerda fight, like Luan just had like this close fight with Cody Stamann, and Damon just obliterated him. The Jose Johnson fight, first round twister, and then a week later, you fight Mario Bautista to kind of like a 50-50 fight. Some people thought he got robbed there. I wouldn't go that far. I thought that fight was super close. I actually did have it for Bautista, but by the thinnest of margins. So here, coming back to fight Montel, let me see what the stats say regarding these two, because this is one of the most intriguing fights. So same height. Montel only has a 3-inch reach advantage. Blackshear more volume. Montel much better striking defense. And as far as takedown defense goes, both of them close to the 70% mark. So, I mean, basically, I just see this being, I think it's going to have a lot of exciting scrambles. But I also think these two might respect each other a bit because they're both such physical presences. They're both so well-rounded. They're both so talented. They're both insanely athletic. They might respect each other a little bit. Yeah, I just don't have the best read on it. But based on Montel's history, so like the issues I've had with Damon is he tends to lose almost every third round he's in. That's one of the issues I have. I don't think he's not in bad shape. Look at the guy's physique. Of course he's not in bad shape. It's just his style is a very taxing style. And then Montel, it's like he'll have these flashes of brilliance, but then long moments of inactivity. And yeah, it's just hard to point your finger on what the deal is because you'd think this guy would have already been a top 5 guy by now. So it could go either way, but I'll lean with the plus 130 dog just because I could see this, potentially being line minus 110 apiece. So I'll go with the plus 130 dog, but Montel is so talented that on his best day, I think he can beat anybody. But we've seen time and time again that he doesn't always show up. And when I say that, that's not discrediting him because I truly do think he can beat some of the guys. Dude, I think he can destroy Brett Johns. I think he could destroy Ricky Simone. Like, And man, in that fight with Ricky Simone, where Ricky Simone took his back, the way that Montel was able to leverage those insanely long arms and prevent Ricky from doing anything was so ridiculous. But here, he's not going to have those same physical advantages against Blackshear. So, yeah, I'm curious if the elevation plays a part here. I'm also curious if these guys show each other a lot of respect or these guys actually go for it. Because there's a chance it's a very slow pace, but there's a chance it's balls to the wall. So, yeah, I really don't know what's going to happen here. So, for that reason, I'm going to lean with the dog, Blackshear. Now, last but not least, in the middleweight division, we got a matchup between Josh Fremd. He's 11-5, taking on Andre Petroski, who's 10-3. Currently, they also got it a dead pick-up. -110 Fremd, -110 Petroski. So, Fremd on his regional scene, have y'all seen some of his knockouts on his regional scene? Like, he had some vicious, brutal knockouts. The dude's 6'4". He's a former either D2 or D3 wrestler. He's got some nice long man chokes, but man, he hasn't had that one hitter quitter knockout yet in the UFC that I've been waiting for a while. Like, there's certain guys that I've been waiting for them to get that big knockout. Faresiam, I talk about that all the time. I'm waiting for Faresiam to get that big knockout, and I'm also waiting on Josh Fremd to finally get that big knockout, because I think Josh Fremd is a lot better than he's shown in the UFC. And with Petroski is a very physical guy. He's got the wrestling credentials, nasty front chokes. And I actually really liked his performance against Wellington Turman. I understand that's a different matchup, but I felt that was like a big step in the right direction. Kind of a sketchy first round, then really takes over against a black belt, full mounts him, and just puts it on him. And it seemed like, okay, like, yeah, we're trending in the right direction. But the Mearshart fight, when you're a prospect that has aspirations of moving up, and all respect to Mearshart, most submissions in middleweight history, friend of the show. I love Mearshart, but I just talk truth. I just talk objectively. When guys have aspirations of making it to the top 15, they're supposed to handle Mearshart in a certain way. And Petroski arguably didn't even win that fight. Petroski did not handle Mearshart how you're supposed to. Then the next two fights, okay, Michel Pereira, I'll give you a pass. That dude has been running through literally everybody since he moved up to middleweight. But the Malkoun fight, that's where shit got a little sketchy. And again, it's not even just those fights. It's been other fights in the past where, like, he's another one of these guys with that bully mentality. When he can't, get you out of there earlier, he can't just establish dominance with his grappling, he's a big-time gasser. And you put Andre Petroski in Denver elevation, Fremd, thank God for him, lives in Denver, so he'll be used to that. But then he might have the nerves of the crowd, fighting at home in that arena for the first time. That might be something to think about. But he's just got to get through a little bit of a storm with Petroski. If he's able to do that, I'm hoping we might finally see that first Josh Fremd knockout that we've been waiting for so long. And Petroski said, when I saw an interview with him and they asked him, like, what's your plans for this fight? His plan is, he said, I want to get a first round knockout. Why did he say that? Here's why he said that. Because Andre Petroski doesn't want to go past round one, let alone in Denver elevation. That's why he wants a first round knockout here. Whereas Fremd, I think he's saying, he's ready to go wherever the fight goes, So I'm going to lean with Fremd, but I do have a lot of experience betting Fremd. I've bet him 3 times. I bet him against Trey Sean. Didn't go our way. I bet him against Cedric was Dumas, like +180, +190, one of the all-time bets of that year. And then I bet him literally -300 straight against Jamie Pickett because, one doesn't simply lose to Jamie Pickett in a UFC fight. So I do have experience betting him here. The reason I'm kind of hesitant here, even though I'm picking him to win, is just because I think if this fight was like a year or two ago, that Petroski would be like a -200 favorite. It's just that Petroski's a flick. Petroski's a front runner. And I think he's finally been figured out. So I'm going to go with Fremd here. But it'll be interesting for sure. I can't wait to see what happens. Now let's talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. So what is the fight to watch? Guys, come on. The fight to watch is Drew Dober versus Gian Silva. So people were talking about how, like, Drew Dober doesn't wrestle much and this and that. Well, he is one of the all-time knockout artists in the UFC, especially in the lightweight division. But he actually took down Moicano his last fight. And not only that, in that third round, he tried that takedown again, and he ended up giving up position. I got to even give him credit. Like Drew Dober, when Moicano was on top of him, Drew Dober was able to retain his guard, which, okay, retaining guard doesn't win you fights, but retaining guard prevents you from getting finished. I mean, you look at Jalen Turner, what happened when Moicano got on top of him? Finished him shortly after. When Moicano got on top of Dober, Dober was doing a great job retaining guard, and had he not gone for that ill-advised throw in that third round, you could have possibly won the fight. And Gian Silva, the guy barks on his way to the walkout, had an incredible fight on the not the Ultimate Fighter, on Contender Series, had a vicious knockout in his debut, a vicious knockout in his sophomore appearance, and now he's fighting one of the lightweight KO kings. So for that reason, Drew Dober versus Gian Silva is my fight to watch. Who is my fighter to watch? My fighter to watch is Fatima Kline. Listen, like I said, a lot of people were saying you're the best female prospect outside the UFC. I was like, yeah, okay. Then I watched the tape. I was like, oh, so she is legit. And they're not just giving her, a Brogan Walker, who's probably not even on the roster, like a Kay Hansen, who's also not on the roster, but you can catch my drift. They're giving her Jasmine Jasudavicius, who has paid her dues, who's flat out in her prime, who's bigger than her, who's physical, who's fighting with a lot of confidence and pride. So Fatima has got a big test in front of her on short notice, up in that altitude, in her debut. And I'm very curious to see what she can do, because just like her girlfriend, Erin Blanchfield, how far she's gone, I think Fatima can go super far as well. So for that reason, Fatima Kline is my fighter to watch. Well, my friends, we did it. It's going down this Saturday night in Denver. Truly appreciate y'all being here with me. It means the world to me. You can follow me on Twitter at Best Fight Picks. You can follow me on Instagram at Half the Battle Pod. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave me a comment. If you feel like sharing, that's amazing too. And I'm just grateful to still be here doing this, talking fights with y'all. And I'm also grateful for all your support and love. So thank you. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.